So the first game this weekend in the Pettitts Senior Hurling Championship quarter-finals is Barontown against the Fight Harriers. Des, who's going to win this one and how do you see it going?
I think it's going to be a very close game. I think what might go again, Barontown, will be the 3-week break. The Harriers are after playing 2 weeks in a row now, and look, they weren't great again, Ratoath, but they played well last weekend. So I think it is going to be close. I think the Barontown have the better team than the Harriers. But I'm going to go with the Harriers on the basis that Barontown are going to come in and match short. And I think if the Harriers abandon a sweeper at times and play chin one-on-one in the forward line, that they'll get enough scores. But it is going to be close. As I said, I think Barontown have the better team, but I think it's going to go again that they have had a 3-week break. So I'll go with the Harriers.
So we have a vote there for the Harriers. Ed, do you agree?
I agree with a lot of what Des is saying. The 3-week gap is a major factor in the game. But, the Harriers, for a long period of the match last Sunday, they didn't look like they were going to get through. But what a performance by Leachin in the last 20 minutes, he really, and Richie Keogh as well, I've been very impressed with Barontown for the last 2 years, Peter. And, I think Craig Doyle is going to be a loss to Barontown on the day. But something tells me I still think Barontown will have enough to win this match by a small margin.
The last day, the big difference that I saw it was the extra panel that the Fight Harriers had compared to Clabon. But Lynn have a panel that'd be able to match that type of thing as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but you must remember, Clabon, Paddy Cullen is only back from injury, MJ Furlong is only back, so but Barontown do have a panel, and they'll have Michael Doyle back. Of course, their key player is their goalkeeper. He scored 8 points out of 16, I think it was, against Ferns. He was outstanding on the night, and sure, John Lacey has been a standout performer for Barontown for many a year. So the battle between Richie Keogh and John Lacey could determine the outcome, Peter.
It certainly could. I'd say it's going to be a close game, I think, but I think Barontown just about have enough. I think maybe when push comes to shove in a tight game, Barontown might just have a little bit more in the tank for it. So the second game on Saturday is between Ferns St Aidan's and the Rapparees. Both teams have different paths. Obviously, the Rapparees are unbeaten, and Ferns have had a defeat along the way as well. But Ed, how do you see it going?
Yeah, it's actually a very hard one to call, as are all four of them. Very hard to call. So, I think Ferns might have the better of the forwards, and it was a major win for them last Saturday night. They showed great character, and it looked like they were gone out of the championship. But I suppose the experiment of playing Liam Ryan midfield the last day, you'd expect that he'd be back in the backs now. So, they might curtail the Ferns forwards. I think it's going to be very close. I was just thinking about it all day, and something tells me this one is going to extra time, and I think the Raps will win in extra time.
Des, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, similar to Ed, I think this is another very hard one to pick. Of the forward lines, I think Ferns have probably 3 or 4 better forwards than the Rapparees, and I think that could sway it for him. But in saying that, I think they need more from the likes of Paul Morris. He's got no score against Feathered. But I think if I was over Ferns, I'd be putting him full forward, play him on Liam Ryan, and I think he'll get 3 or 4 points in there because he tends to drift, and a big performance from Paul Morris. I think Ferns by a couple of points will win this, and I think it is going to go again Ferns with a 2-week gap, or again the Rapparees for a 2-week gap, and I'll be going with Ferns on the forwards.
And as in the last 4 or 5 years, both of these teams have regularly made semi-finals, but they haven't managed to get to too many finals, nor managed to get across the line and win any of the finals. What do you think both of them are sort of missing?
Yeah, it's hard to know really. The Rapparees could have beaten us maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago in 17, and Ferns have been to a final in 13, but they haven't really got there since. I just think maybe it's a lack of confidence at times that they're afraid to push on a bit, that they feel that they're not as good as they are. But I think both teams could win the championship, and I thought Feathered probably, if they had beat Ferns, could have won the championship. But I just think both teams probably lack of confidence when they get bet in a year and they're trying to come back again. But both of them are capable of winning the championship if they get going.
They certainly are. I think this will be a very close game. I've gone against Ferns a few times this season, so I'm going to go for them, but I do think it'll be very close. The first game on Sunday is at 12 p.m. in Wexford Park, and it's between St Anne's and Ratoath. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, on last week's preview, I made reference to the fact that the Ans would be without 6 defenders from last year. Now they got one of them back, but I forgot to make reference that the 5 lads that replaced them are simply outstanding. Young Owen Ryan and young Shockman, they were very good on the day. The Ans, I went out, Peter, to get the team for the live stream, and my God, they were really, really fired up for that match in the warm up, you know. So they put a great performance together, and sure, Dermot O'Keefe and Lee Moog McGovern and Mark Furlong and a new kid on the block, Brian Kavanagh, was very, very good on the day as well. Yeah, the Ans are a very, very hard working team. They have the option of hitting the high balls into Dylan O'Brien and Jonathan Fogarty. That could trouble Rathnewer. But on the Rathnewer side, you have very, very good forwards when they get going. So again, like all the games this weekend, it's going to be very hard to call. I slightly favour the Ans. If you remember last year in Belfield, the Ans beat Rathnewer by 2 points in a very good game. So something tells me the Ans will win it. But then again, you wouldn't be surprised.
Des?
Yeah, look, I think it's another close game, Peter. I think I was really impressed with the Ans, and not alone for the Ans. Work rate is never in question with the Ans, but I thought their use of the ball was really good. From the full backline, Shockman, Fiona O'Driscoll, Brian Kavanagh, they were all really good players. Owen Ryan, another really good player. I was so impressed with the Ans that I just can't see, unless the Rathnewer forward line really click, and Rathnewer's strength is in their forward line, so it could click. But I just think, look, at the Ans have the 2 best players on the pitch in Liam McGovern and Dermot O'Keefe, and I think the Ans will win this one. I think they're going to be fourth in the championship.
I was very impressed with Rathnewer the last day, but obviously I was very impressed with St Anne's against Owlert as well. St Anne's are the type of team that always tend to improve as the championship goes on, whereas Rathnewer, I'm still not sure, have they shown us that they're able to get over the struggle of losing those tight games yet. I do think it'll be a tight game, but I think St Anne's might just win it. And the 4th quarter final this weekend is a repeat of last year's county final between the Shelmaliers and Naveana. Des, how will it go?
Yeah, look, this is the best game of the weekend. It's the bumper game. The Shelmaliers haven't played for a few weeks, and I think they're underperforming this year, but they went through the championship last year very similar. If Gorey's lads are missing, Owen Malloy, Owen Conroy, Charlie McGuckin didn't play last week, and Sean Doyle suspended, I just think that edges it towards Shelmaliers. I think if them lads wasn't missing, I'd be going for Gorey. But look, I think Jack Cullen is a big one for Gorey, but last year in the county final, Sean Keane Carroll kind of played on him, and he has athleticism to play on Jack Cullen, not let him go up the field. That will be happening again, I presume. The only way Gorey could probably curb that is to play Jack Cullen as a sweeper, and then the Shelmaliers are going to have a decision. But I just think the Shells are really good at moving the ball up the pitch, and I think the Shells are going to win this, but it is going to be close. But the lads are a huge loss if they're not playing for Gorey.
Ed?
Yeah, all what Des has said is true. Gorey will miss the influence of those players. But I was just thinking, Peter, 2 weeks ago, if you had asked us who was going to win the championship, invariably three names would have sprung up. Would have been the Martins, Gorey and the Shells. After this match, only one of those teams are standing. So I said last week whoever would win between Gorey and the Martins would go close to winning the championship. I think it was a major step forward for Gorey, but you have to consider that the players they're missing are going to be a huge loss to them. So Kieran O'Shaughnessy is out for Shelmaliers. He's a very hard working player. I would have said Gorey if they had had all their players, but something tells me the Shells might just nick this one. But as Des knows, it's very hard to put 2 back to back.
And Ed, these 2 teams are in the county final at the moment, and are we in a position where we have any really good team? Whoever wins Wexford, would they be able to compete in Leinster, or have we a lot of sort of middle of the road teams that could win the championship?
Yeah, look, the standard is not as high as a few years ago, but the competitiveness is very, very high. You don't have an Owlert or a Rathnewer teams that consistently competed in the Leinster Club Championship. But then again, you're coming up against superpowers like Ballyhale and Coola, who are 2 of the finest club hurling teams that we're ever likely to see. So, no, if you're asking me, do I see a Wexford team winning Leinster this year? I don't see it, but then again, you never know.
I'm not sure, Des, how long ago it is since a team other than Owlert or Rathnewer have managed to actually win a game in Leinster against a Kilkenny team, an Offaly team or a Dublin team. Would you see any of the Wexford teams capable of doing that at the moment if they got through?
No, being honest, Peter, I would say no, because like, you know, a lot of teams that win the Wexford Championship are probably happy to win the Wexford Championship, and you know, they win the county final and maybe they go on a bender for the week, like, but we probably done that when, just going back to the first county finals we won in 2004 and 2005. We got beaten by James Stephens in 2004 by 4 points, and we put in not as big of effort as we would have after that, because we got used to winning county finals. But look at, you have to, they went on and won the All-Ireland, James Stephens, by 4. So when you look back on it, it was a missed opportunity in 2004. But I just can't, I as Ed said, I think we have we've so many teams in the championship now of a very similar standard. They're all good teams, but I couldn't see him competing with the likes of Akula, Ballyhale, Shamrocks, unless they came up with some. You can't go out there and play 15 on 15, or you're going to have to come up with something to beat these teams. But look, I don't think any of the teams in Wexford are worried about Leinster at the minute.
So certainly both of the Shelmaliers and Gorey are going to be worried about this weekend. But I suppose the reason we're talking about it is that the Shelmaliers and Gorey are the two of the top teams in Wexford over the last few years. I think this will be a very close game again. I think the performance of Gorey against St Martin's has to have an impact on their legs, but should also have a positive impact on their confidence, the fact that they got over the line. But I do think the Shelmaliers just might have a little bit much. And the fifth and final game in the Pettitts Senior Hurling Championship this week is the one that no one really wants to be involved in, and it's the game between Clabon and Crossabeg Ballymurn in a relegation semi-final. So Ed, how do you think it'll go?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, we had 16 senior teams in 2011. A decision was made to cut it back to 12, which I agreed with at the time, and I think it was proven right, you know, when you consider that the teams that went down haven't been back. But, you know, I feel very sorry for the 5 teams that find themselves in relegation. You know, the 5 of them, you can go through each of them. They've all proven they can compete. And like when you consider Owlert and the Martins, they've more than competed, you know. They've won something like 17 of the last 27 championships. And, you know, even the Wexford 96 team, there was 6 from both clubs on the team. But then, you know, Clabon find themselves in the position having won 2 games and lost one by 1 point to the county champions. And like last Sunday, they almost had the Harriers beaten. And, you know, now they found themselves in a relegation dogfight. And Feathered, of course, Des speaks highly of Feathered, and so do I. I think they're a very good team, and they drew with the Raps and they drew with Ferns, so they're more than able to compete. And I just wonder, if we have teams that are up to that standard, will we not be better off with 13 or 14 senior teams, rather than relegating 2 teams now that, let's be honest about it, are going to make the Intermediate Championship lopsided next year. And I think the Intermediate Championship is actually one of the best championships we've had for the last 10 years, you know. So that's just on that. But on the game, you know, Clabon and Ballymurn have met before. There was 1 point in it. I think Clabon got 3 points in a row, if memory serves me right, to win the game. And the standout performer that day was Conall Flood. And the way he went off last Sunday, I don't expect to see Conall Flood. So the way I'd see it, if Conall Flood plays, I think Clabon will win. If he doesn't play, it definitely favours Ballymurn.
You've just used the line I was going to use as well, Ed. I was going to say I think Clabon will win if Conall Flood is able to play, and I think Ballymurn will win if he's not. But Des, what do you think?
Yeah, sure, be on similar lines in regard of sure Conall Flood is probably the best player along with Harry Keogh for Clabon, and he looked like he pulled up pretty bad with a hamstring, and I know more than anybody about hamstrings. If he pulled up like that, he won't be able to play. He'll probably, you know, if he put a strap in, he still won't be able to play. That to me favours Ballymurn, because, you know, it was close. Ballymurn played well enough again. They ran the Ants to a couple of points. I just think Conall Flood is the factor here. I think Ballymurn will win. It is going to be close. If Clabon can grind it out, that's what they may do to beat him. But I'd be going with Ballymurn. But just on the relegation, I think Ed is right. We have probably 13 or 14 teams that can definitely compete in senior now. We've more than 12. We didn't have more than 12 in 10, 11, 12, which was the right decision. But you take the likes of Feathered and Owlert, the Martins, these teams, like they should be established senior teams. In regard to Feathered, I would say if they got relegated, it might be hard to go up, because they seem to be putting even the likes of John Turbert. He's an outstanding hurler. Do you know what I mean? It's lads like that, because he's playing hurling at a senior grade, and it's bringing on Richie Waters. I'd never heard of him until I see, but he's a senior Wexford player. But if you go down to intermediate level, then like they probably won't put in the effort that you would be as a senior champ, because Federer are going to be playing football. So I just think we have at least 14 teams you've Bunclody, you've Aldgate, you've Beauverdale, you've these, and they're all able to compete in senior as well. So we have 13 or 14, 15 teams that are good enough.
So we have interesting views there on relegation. There certainly is a different dynamic to the championship. There used to be, when there was the 16 teams a few years ago, there used to be very heavy beatings, but the playing field does seem to have levelled a bit, and I would echo the sentiments of Ed there that and Des, that the standard is more even across the board now, and maybe there is scope for 16 senior teams, but unless that's changed, there's going to be 2 teams relegated, and the game at the weekend is going to be a big one. As I said, I think Conall Flood, whether he plays or whether he doesn't, is going to have a big bearing on it. But I suppose Ballymurn nearly beat Clabon when Conall Flood was playing, so it'll be thereabouts. But I think maybe just about go with Clabon.